Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hello.
It's Friday.
Happy Friday.
Welcome to the morning show. Buy here, pay here, people. That intro.
That intro. We had a lovely evening last night. I had Bill Elizondo, the lead, the senior moderator for Dealer 20 Groups for NIAD.
And as he
came over
clarified
for
on the
dinner.
show, that's not about senior citizen. That's
No.
Yeah.
I mean, there are perks, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely.
Hi, George.
Hi,
in
George.
Arizona.
Good morning. Yeah, it's Friday,
Yeah.
and it's been a good week. It's been a busy week. So.
Yeah, George, are we going to see you at NIADA in Vegas? Or are we going to see you there?
I hope so.
Who will be there?
Happy Friday.
So if you're listening in this morning, please let us know where you're listening from. We know
Yeah.
George is in sunny Arizona. So just please say hello and let us know what part of the country you're in this morning. Happy to have you with us. We're going to talk numbers.
We're going to talk numbers, and you have a shout out.
Oh yeah, I wanted to get just to mention we've been talking about software in recent months, and I wanted to give a little mention to the folks we know over at DealPack. We've been working with a number of clients on a number of different DMS systems and wrestling with numbers like what we're going to go through today. And we discovered after a virtual meeting with somebody from the DealPack team that they have a report that does an excellent job of producing the numbers that we suggest that all dealers should have at their fingertips. So if you need help with that, I'll tell you that their report, those of you that are DealPack users, just look for the report. I think it's in the reports 2 section, but just AR roll forward. That gives the historical numbers that we're going to talk about today. And so we're going to continue to shout out to other DMS providers that can show us that they can produce those numbers in a way that balances.
Yeah.
And so we verified the numbers with the DealPack client we're working with, and it looks good. So congratulations. And it's not new for them. They've had it for a long time. It's just that I don't know that folks really know how important it is or how valuable it is.
Yeah.
So,
well, it really ties into what we're going to be talking about as well.
Absolutely.
Today. And good morning, George in Florida, and Karen and the Carolinas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Karen will be there at
Yes.
NIAD. Cool.
Excellent.
All right.
We're looking forward to that. That's coming up though in just a few weeks.
19th through the 22nd.
19th to the 22nd.
And we speak on the morning of the 22nd, which I want to say is a Thursday.
Yeah.
And so
And I just wanted to let you know the Monday of that week, we won't be doing the broadcast at the in the venue for the morning show because it doesn't really start until that afternoon. But we will be doing the broadcast from the venue, and I think that we're just finalizing some stuff. It might be in the expo hall on Wednesday. So those of you who want to get up, it's Vegas, so that means it'll be 8 a.m. And so they are putting together a stage in the expo hall for that.
Is that you or me?
Yeah, that's me.
Phone's buzzing over here.
It's like I should do the whole movie theater thing.
Oh yeah.
All
that. So
yeah. Oh, talking about movies, I took my mom to go see Little Mermaid. Wonderful movie. It was really, really, really great. And I knew all of the words, and it was, it was a good thing that I didn't sing because I mean it's when they redid Beauty and the Beast, I was just like wanting to sing every single last.
You sing beautifully, but a movie theater
not
is
in a
probably
movie theater,
not the right place.
But it was really, really good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
So shall we get to our
Yes,
topic?
we should.
Okay, let's jump into that. So we suggested with our title today that there are some numbers that we suggest dealers have to know in Buy Here, Pay Here, and we have many reasons for that. Okay, I can give lots of reasons why we think these numbers are especially critical for dealers to identify. So we hope your software will make this easy.
There are softwares out there that don't.
Right.
And we've dealt with different ones, and
and we're not naming names.
We're not naming names.
We're sending some emails.
Some site, and it's this whole like the dealer where we're going to the DMSs and asking, hey, can you try to fix this? We're hoping that we can
Yeah.
get some of these DMSs to play nice.
So I can show on the screen kind of what the
Yeah.
results are going to look like, but
Mhm.
why don't we jump into the numbers? So
Do you want me to
we
do
didn't-
this?
Sure, you can go ahead, put
Okay.
that up there. But I think there are 6 numbers that we would recommend that you have available at the close of the month. Here we are, broadcasting live on June 2nd. We've already closed the month of May. Ideally, you would already have these numbers from the month of May, in which case, let me just tell you what the first number is. That's going to be your opening principal balance. You can see this here on the screen. So this is basically the part that tells what is the balance in principal only. So this is just for your buy here, pay here portfolio.
Okay, so let's talk about the things this does not include.
It does not include side notes. It doesn't include late fees. It's
Cash
not going to include any
sales
accrued
out,
interest. Yeah, any kind of other balances. We're
Down payments, none of that.
for the purpose of this conversation, around identifying, and the way we think about that is your buy here, pay here portfolio in most businesses would be, in most buy here, pay here operations would be the largest asset in the company. We think it's important to know the movement in the principal balance first. Of course, we need to know those other numbers. There's some things about that. But when we know these numbers, then it helps us to produce, we want that historically. I would say 6 months is at a minimum. You'd like to have 12 months of this information. But what we find is a lot of dealers don't bother, and their system doesn't auto-generate a notes receivable balance. So you would, in order to produce this and have it be accurate, because I personally, in my experience with DMS providers, we typically can't really trust a receivables report that's run after the fact. Like if today I tried to go back and run one for May 31 on a lot of systems, I wouldn't trust that to reconcile.
Which is like another topic about closing out the month and closing out the month and closing out the month.
Some systems require you to take some steps to close transactions or whatever, close the calendar month. And so with that's part of what creates problems. And of course, dealers will sometimes backdate, or the team will backdate some transactions. That also creates a problem. All the more reason that we need to know, we need to lock down these numbers and make sure that we can identify what's moving, because in order for us to really measure how the portfolio is performing, we have to be able to get to these numbers so that we can lock down our principal movement, principal activity. I call it principal reconciliation. But so the first number is,
well, can we ask one quick question? So we talked about things that excluded side notes, cash sales, outside financing, any late fees, miscellaneous, that kind of stuff, sales tax as well. Why is it important for dealers to be tracking these numbers?
I can give you multiple reasons. The first one would just be, this is the best way to measure the performance. Like, how is that largest asset in the company performing? Like, how are we really doing on collections? We talked about some in prior episode, but like, how are we really doing? Well, to know, this is a monthly number. There are other numbers we would suggest on a weekly basis, but this is a monthly number. So it's a longer range portfolio performance. And these figures that we're going to talk about are the numbers that you would use to calculate collateral recovery rate, which is probably what your lender would be looking at. Certainly, these bulk buyers, if you wanted to go sell your paper, they'd be probably looking at your collateral recovery rate or some variation of these numbers. So I think these are the critical ones. Interest coverage is another one so let's talk about what interest coverage is. I can show you probably right here on the spreadsheet when we get to that. But basically, let's talk first about the numbers that we need to capture.
Okay.
And then we can talk about what you can calculate from that. So the second number you would need to have would be the collected principal down here. Okay. So then charge off principal. So now we have 3 of them. We've got interest collected, which actually goes down here because it's not part of your principal. It's outside of this calculation. So when I talk about a reconciliation, and we've had prior podcast episodes on this subject, we're just trying to say, okay, if we have this much in the start of the month and we add this much amount finance, which I didn't list that one because I know everybody knows how to get to that number. That's more of a sales number, but we need it to make sure, in order for us to identify our change in principal, We start with opening principal. We add the amounts that we financed during that period. We subtract the principal that we collected, and I'm going to call it primary principal. Some of the DMS systems call it a primary portfolio or your buy here, pay here portfolio. So that just excludes, again, cash sales and things like that. And then charge off principal, we need to know that. So let me clarify that. That's your gross principal balance on the account at the time it charged off. Okay, so just I'll say it again, the gross principal balance on the account at the time it was charged off, irrespective of what happened with the repo. Okay, so now, because again, think about what we're doing. We're calculating our portfolio changes. It increased by this amount, it decreased by this amount. So we know that when we charge off an account, that gross principal balance goes away. Now, if we had any other write-downs or any other adjustments, this particular dealer doesn't have any of those. And then you have your calculated closing principal balance, okay? So we calculate that and compare it to what the report showed at the end of the period. So in this particular case, we just closed May for this dealer. So you can see they started with 2.1, had, and this is a low volume dealer. They had 218,000 in amount finance, charge off principal, principal collected rather, and then charged off principal, no write downs or adjustments. We calculate then from those numbers that we would close the period with 2.179. In fact, the report showed we had 2.181. So they're off by about $2,000. Good news for them is they've got $2,000 more than we calculate they would have. If it's less, we just typically are aiming for plus or minus 1% of deviation there. So if for our purposes in producing management reports, if we're within 1%, we just move on. We can let the dealer identify the imbalance. We would recommend they identify the balance, and we recommended to this dealer yesterday that they identify that source of that discrepancy. But it's a small number, so we keep moving, produce the report. Now we got the interest collected and then repo ACV. So again, these are outside of our reconciliation of principal. And so we've got interest collected, which is part of our money, but it's not part of our principal portfolio. Right? That's additional. And then the repo ACV recovery. So we need that number because that drives all these roll forwards and projections and collateral recovery rates and all these other numbers we need to know. So to clarify again, I said up here, so this particular dealer in this period charged off $48,000 in principal on the accounts that were charged off. That's the gross amount that the customer owed at the time of the charge off. And they recovered in the way of repos, whether they sold them at the auction or just assigned a value, then that would be the number 11.7. So, and that's got some sales volume there and charge off count numbers. But now what that lets us do, having those numbers alone, and again, ideally you'd have it for at least 6 months. Now we can do some rolling averages. We can start to do some math. So these are the numbers that I often call conversion rates. This is the rate at which so let's do the math. This is the principal collected up here divided by the opening principal. So in this case, we'd be doing 64,000 divided by the what we started the month with was 2.073. That gives us 3.1%. So that's an important number to know because we want to track that and see trends on that. So I've got it charted. I'll show you the chart in just a minute. But then the next number was charge off principal as a percentage of the open. Okay. So now we've got, in that case, again, it would be 48,000 divided by the 2.073. And that tells us our charge off rate for the month was 2.3 as a percentage of open. So, you and I had a conversation a week or so ago about charge off rates and charge off numbers. And people say, my charge off rate is 30%. 30% of what? Like, what are we talking about? It's like, this is why I just try to get as specific as we can about numbers. And people ask me, what's a good charge off rate? And I said, well, I'm used to looking at it like this. Like, if we want to look at how is the portfolio converting in cash. So you can see that charge-offs, in this particular case, the dealer had almost $50,000 in charge-offs, still collected, just like they 3.5 3 months ago, 3.1 a month before last. And so it gives you an idea that regardless of where that charge-off rate is, we want to see at what rate are we converting to cash. And then that'll take us into some other numbers. We do the same thing for repo ACV, percentage of open, interest collected as a percentage of open. The reason we do that is because we use those numbers on the page you're about to see where we drive a projection.
Mhm.
Now that we have those numbers, so this is something else we didn't list, is like the other reason these numbers become very important is we know in buy here, pay here, it's really challenging to keep on top of your cash and to, a lot of our dealers have floor plans or lines of credit, and they're trying to forecast, we typically sell 25 cars a month. Can we afford to sell 30 next month? Can I afford to
Mhm.
buy enough cars to sell 30 or whatever? So this is part of why this becomes important, because when we have this historical information, we can then use that to project over a period. So I'll show you in a minute what a 12-month projection looks like from this information. But first, let me show you this interest coverage figure. So this is something that a lot of lenders will look at. I mean, certainly in the finance sector, it's something. So why do we charge high interest in our segment? Well, it's because we need that because of the risk element. Mostly the interest income, according to the financial experts, is intended to help offset losses. So in this case, it's of net losses or net charge off. So you would take the interest that you brought in up there, which was, where's that number? Right there, 41,000. Then you would take this number of charge off 48, add back the repo recovery. So you can see that the net charge off for that period after crediting the repo value is about 37,000, right? So you can see that the interest income of 41 covered the net losses for the month of May. So
Mhm.
you can see that number down there it's about $5,000 positive. So that's a number to watch. Like, it's something to see, that's ideally the portfolio would be generating enough interest income to cover those losses. And you can see that they had months that didn't, but overall we're looking for that to, cover those losses. And then we get into collateral recovery rate.
Mhm.
It should have a coffee with this. But that one we covered in some detail in the past episode. Look up the one with Jimmy Rambo, and we covered the math on
Mhm.
that. So, but it shows the formula right here is principal collected plus repo ACV divided by principal collected plus charge off. And it's a little bit different than the formula that Jimmy at Spartan had, but it's okay because the calculations result in about the same ratio. Okay. So you can use either one. But what that does then is lets us look at this again is a number that a lot of lenders would be
Mhm.
looking at. If you want to sell bulk paper, this is a pretty good indication of its value. I can't say where they're going to pay if this dealer went to the bulk market with a 72% collateral recovery rate.
Mhm.
I don't know what they're going to pay for that paper. We'll
Mhm.
try to find out for you. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
I would just tell you that it's going to be a factor. It's going to be among the things I would look at in deciding what to purchase the portfolio for. And then you got principal. We just do some rolling averages and some other things over there. But let me take you over to the roll forward. So the roll forward basically just says, okay, if we took our closing principal balance for the period, our actual closing was 2.181, and we bring that number over here. I know it's difficult
You
to
want to
see.
bring it in?
Zoom it in.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do that easily here. It's already at 1%. Sorry, we'll give it a minute here. This might get too large, but we'll try it.
There we go.
That's
That's
better.
perfect.
Yeah. So now what we do is we bring over those factors from the other page. In this case, we're using a rolling average from 3 months worth and saying, okay, if we continue to collect at the rate that we've collected in recent months, this conversion rate on principal collected, this conversion rate on charge off principal, then that would tell us, okay, so notice right up here on the amount finance line, that's all zeroed out. So it's sort of like if you took this portfolio and just either isolated it in your system or just quit putting contracts in that particular portfolio at the rate that we're currently collecting, this is the rate that it would convert. That's why I call it conversion cash or conversion rate. It's the rate at which your portfolio is going to convert into cash.
Mhm.
So we do the same thing with the repo rate down here, the repo recovery rate, I should say, and then the interest collected.
Mhm.
Some people, by the way, are going to call repo recovery. You're going to call it liquidation proceeds sometimes. Same thing. It's like just what did we collect from the sale of or from the value of cars that we repossessed. And so we take all those numbers and run a projection because, again, this is why we like to measure it against the opening balance. Now I can say, okay, if I collect at that rate in this month, I will close the month with 2.06.
If you didn't add any new contracts.
Correct.
Yes.
I would close the portfolio at the end of the month with 2.06. I would have collected that much principal. I would have charged off that much principal, recovered this much, and then collected this much in interest. So that just tells us, and here's the P&I collected for the period. So now that is just information, because what it does now is it tells you this is, if you continue to perform at this rate, at least it gives you some idea what kind of cash deposits you should have for the following month, the trailing month. And then you have also over here just this is just information. In the next 12 months, if you continue to collect at the rate that you are, you would collect 640 grand of the 2.1. Okay, so about 29%. Principal and repo ACV, that would take you up to about 1.009, and then principal plus repos plus interest, because that's the money that's the portfolio is going to yield. That's what we're going to collect from consumers, including the sale of repos. And so it's just information. Why would I want that? Because if I'm looking to sell this book of paper of $2.1 million in contracts, I just want to see, okay, if I keep it myself in the next 12 months, it should produce for me about 63% of that 2.1, or in this case, about 1.4 million. I should be able to collect myself in the next 12 months at the rate that I'm currently collecting. Okay, so this is why it just becomes so important. But gosh, there's other reasons to have this information. I mean, when you start talking about things like theft analysis, Amanda Sanchez did a presentation with me back at the Super Forum, last year, and we talked about this idea of reconciliation. We tried to pack so much information into 45 minutes that we weren't able to go into much depth. But when you start to look at reconciling receivables to cash, this is a big step in trying to identify any kind of discrepancies, any sort of sometimes it's not necessarily theft. It could be just mismanagement. Somebody's overusing deferrals or whatever that might look like. You want to start to identify the changes in principle. So again, so many reasons to know and track those numbers. But one of the key things here is all the numbers that we have on the screen and the list that we gave, all those numbers are what I would call static numbers. You could grab them any time. In other words, I could go today on the 2nd and run a report for May on principal collected, charge off, repo recovery, interest collected. I can run all those reports after the fact. But the opening and closing principal, we have to grab those at the time. Hopefully your system will allow an auto scheduled report. Which is another thing.
It's an auto schedule. There are some that will automatically let you do that. Some that you can let your DMS know that you would like to do this. There might be a small charge, and there's others that just don't.
Yeah.
So
some have a part in there. You just can go create them.
That way you don't have to remember if you're not around.
Yeah. So this particular dealer that we're looking at, they're actually able to have their numbers. Sorry, I was going to try to show another sheet here. I don't want to confuse people, but this is just a different look at the same thing. But I'm going to have to zoom in on that one too. But I think the key is having the numbers available so that you can get to that. So again, that's going to help you in a number of ways to be able to identify the things that are moving in your business, which can help from whoops, that's a little touchy. So in order to identify those numbers, first, performance. How are we doing? Like, how are we really collecting? This is the rate. So we're going to look at interest income and those other factors as well. But we just have to have that information so we can see how's it really doing. This is that AR roll forward from a deal pack user. So you can just see that this is a report that they produced. I don't have the columns hidden or shown in a way that you can really tell what's happening there. But the idea is that you've got the ability to produce that inside the system. This gives you the key numbers that you need to produce this roll forward and to otherwise identify any discrepancies. But now you're working from real performance. This is why I would just say, I would recommend to dealers, let's limit the backdating, especially when it's into a different reporting period, a different calendar month. I see Bill Elizondo's was this morning. That stuff affects these 20 group composites. It's like we should really just make every effort to make sure when we close the month, the calendar month, it's closed. There's no backdating of transactions into the prior month, because that's when we start chasing our tail from an accounting standpoint. And we're not trying to do accounting, but we're trying to produce reports that are going to be reflective of the performance. So, I can show, I didn't get back to the other thing. Just let me see if I'm still zoomed in. I may have to zoom in on each page, but on the,
Oh, yeah.
here's your chart of collections in dollars. So this is an example of some of the kind of stuff that you can begin to produce once you have that information. So this is P&I collected up here on the top row, principal and interest, and then principal only down here. So, and then collateral recovery rate, again, something we can chart and we can see changes in performance. We've analyzed this. We know why there's a dip in that one, but a lot of dealers just don't have this kind of information at their fingertips. So it's just like, it's going to be challenging for them to know, what the trends look like. So you got to kind of get to there. I had one more. So here's collected principal. And so another thing to give you an idea about performance. It's, if a lot of dealers are like me, they're visual, it's much easier to see that in this way and get a better feel for how's the portfolio performing. Is it being consistent, or we got some, is it there's some sporadic, rate to it. And if there's, some deviation, let's find out why. Let's figure out what's going on, why there's such movement there. Because again, this is a longer range. By this time we've closed the month. And so it's a little too late to change our report card for last month or the month before that. But it's at least it's giving you some trending and some information to be able to work from. You can take that out of the thing. It's just, we've shown enough, but I hope we gave you an idea of why we think that's so important. It just, it's critical to have that information for a number of reasons. Some are your own internal reasons. Sometimes it's external reasons, but we just feel like if every dealer could get this, and this is why we've been beating that drum about, we want to make sure DMS providers understand why we think this is so important and why we're just kind of making some noise on behalf of dealers so that each DMS can readily provide that information to their users.
Yeah.
Because we feel like it's that important in this business.
Yeah. And I, just from my perspective, having this kind of information is like the difference between working in your business and working on your business. Is when you know these things, then you can, you can really start to dig in and fix things that need to be worked on working on your business. And there's a lot of dealers that they just, I just want to work in my business. It's a job. It's not a business. And so that's fine. It's a different approach. But if you're looking at creating something that this is a business, this is something that I eventually want to either transfer to a child or a valuable employee or a partner, or I want to sell or whatever, these are important things for you to know.
Yeah. And I would say that too, the other thing that happens is when we can get to this information, then it helps us, and dealers will ask, so Jim, what should that rate be? Like, what should that principal conversion rate be? Well, there's a lot of variation in that, and it has mostly to do with,
don't you love and buy here, pay here, where everything says it depends.
It depends a lot on your business model. I mean, two things that depends on most is your business model. Your APR will have a big impact. Like if you're a higher APR, then your principal collection will probably be lower. If you're a newer business and most of your portfolio is, I'll call it immature, it's younger contracts, well, then that's going to have, on simple interest deals, you're going to have more interest income, than principal early on. So that's also going to be a factor. But this is why we got to stack some months end to end and make sure that it's consistent, or that we can identify, changes in the performance, because in any of those scenarios that I just mapped out, that it would depend, they still should see consistency. Like that should, if you map out 6-12 months worth, you would hope that you would see, very little deviation in that. And if I were your lender, I'd want to see consistency, right? If it's not consistent, what's going on? Why aren't we managing it the same every month? Or, why are our results varying so much? So again, we're just looking for, we got to have the numbers.
And when you have the numbers too, then you kind of know, okay, this has been trending this way, and then have the conversation with yourself or with an advisor or whatever. It's like, why are these numbers trending? What things have changed? What things have you, did you change something drastic? Is what is it that's creating that? And it gives you, I know when you work with different of our clients on the numbers part, is it really can uncover a lot of things that can be worked on. Just by understanding some of these basic numbers. And then, we also do the collection performance, and that's more of a weekly number. It's like, where are we at with actually getting money in the bank
Sure.
every week. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, the numbers that we're talking about here would also apply in lease contracts. I mean, they're different. The numbers will be different, but you still would be looking
Yeah,
for consistency,
absolutely.
and you would need to measure, that even though technically you don't have a portfolio. I mean, we don't need to get into all that, but it's different, but you can still find the numbers to do the metrics and verify your consistency and identify any trends. So yeah, all these things still apply, but yeah, I would just say, thanks to folks for tuning in and letting me kind of geek out today a little bit on numbers. So,
Jim likes to
kind of a
geek out on numbers. And so, we showed you an awful lot of the things to be looking, how to stack them, how to subtract, add, all of that. If you need some help with your numbers, if you're seeing trends that you don't like, whatever, let us know. And, we may be able to help, or we can point you in the right direction to get the help that you need. Or if you are like, my mind is exploding and I can't get to these myself and need some help.
We do some of that. Most recently, we've been training people how to do it and help, so they can begin to do it themselves.
Yes.
So yeah, that's part of what we do. And we just do that through weekly coaching. So it's easy enough.
All right. Well, what else?
I can't think of a thing.
It's
Everybody
Friday,
knows what's coming up.
so,
It's Friday. Folks should go enjoy their weekend. Be back here Monday morning.
Yeah.
We'll
we
continue.
have Kendra.
Is that Monday?
It's Monday. Yeah.
So Kendra Brown is going to come meet with us. I learned that she's in the Houston area.
Yeah.
So we look forward to spending some time with her.
And does a lot with marketing.
Talking about the NIADA convention.
Yes, which is coming up very soon. All right. Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining. I hope you have a fantastic Friday.
Yeah. Enjoy your weekend.
And we will see you all on Monday. Have a great day, guys.